Near the end of a grueling semester in my wife's undergraduate program, the stress was mounting as many of our family's typical routines, like laundry schedules and meals together, were increasingly disrupted. We were grateful that the period of sacrifice was nearing an end and anxious to see the return of a sense of normalcy. One evening, my wife had to go out for a project meeting with her academic team, so I stayed home with our children, 5-year-old Ethan and 19-month-old Kalia, to help them get ready for bed. Although we were all exhausted, we had plenty of fun together as I helped them get washed and into their pajamas. The last step before tucking them into bed was to get Kalia a bottle of milk. Unfortunately, as I went into the kitchen to pour the milk, Kalia toddled into the dining room, reached up to the table, and found my cup, which was still full of water. In her uncoordinated attempt to take a little drink, she spilled the water all over her face, and it ran down and soaked her pajamas. My immediate, reflexive response was abject horror. That was the last clean set of pajamas in the entire apartment. The spilled water would surely ruin the carpet. I would never get the children to bed, and now everything was ruined. But as I started to yell, "What are you doing?" a thought came to me. One of the sweetest epiphanies of my life. I can design this moment. Rather than following my fight or flight response down a narrow tunnel of frustration and anger, I could actually choose from a wide array of options available to create a peaceful outcome for me and my daughter. I looked at her with new eyes, feeling the entire world had suddenly shifted in a miraculous, unimagined way. I quickly chose to smile at her and tell her it was okay. Then I chose to continue to comfort her with my words as I rushed over to help get her out of the wet pajamas. Now, it turns out that actually was the last clean set of pajamas in the apartment, but as I continued to consider how I could choose to design this moment, I realized that I could give Kalia one of my clean t-shirts to wear as an oversized nightgown. Despite my catastrophizing thoughts, the carpet wasn't ruined. In fact, it barely even got wet. And rather than never getting the children to bed or even sending them to bed with hurt feelings, I actually saw the mood become playful again as Ethan walked in and laughed at seeing his sister wearing Dad's huge shirt. He thought that was so funny that he wanted one too. So the two of them ended up giggling happily at each other as I nudged them out of my room and got them tucked safely into their beds. I stayed until they fell asleep, then quietly left and closed the door to their room, grateful in the knowledge that a much heavier door had just opened in my mind and in my heart. We all face anxieties and fears, and in some cases, those feelings pass quickly. But in others, as in mine, feelings of anxiety can become so severe or prolonged that they seriously interfere with daily living. So here's the question. After so many years of struggling to respond in healthy, appropriate ways during stressful situations, to the point where I was hospitalized multiple times for risk of suicide, why was I suddenly able, in the midst of this stress-inducing moment, to realize that I have the power to design this moment? One key reason is that I've not only sought professional help, but I've also been willing to put in the hard work necessary as prescribed by my therapist to help improve my mental well-being. Equally important is learning design thinking, a process used to innovate and solve problems. Although it's most often applied to creating and refining products and services, applied more broadly, learning to think like a designer helped free me from trying to shoehorn my mental processes into the well-meaning but totally unhelpful advice I'd heard for so many years. Just try to find joy in the journey. Now, I admit that may be an analogy that works well for some, and it even may work for you, but it didn't fit for me. You see, while I love traveling to places, I'm anxious to get there and feel burdened by the very passive process of following a predefined path for a prolonged period. So telling myself to just enjoy the journey actually amplified the stress rather than reducing it. In contrast, I have nearly infinite patience for the very active process of visual design, taking a drawing, photograph, painting, or graphic design from a rough concept to a beautiful work of art, as in this design I did for custom guitar. You can see how amateurish the original sketch looks, and it would have been really easy to get frustrated and give up then. But I knew that I could continue to refine that design as long as I stayed open to the possible design choices. On a physical journey from point A to point B, if I turn left instead of right, I'm now on the wrong path and have to turn around to get back on the right one. But when a line in a design takes an unexpected turn, there are multiple good ways to move forward rather than a strict right and wrong answer. While I could simply erase that unexpected line, or happy accident as Bob Ross would call it, I could also choose to explore it and see what it could be and turn it into a tail, a bee, or a coconut tree. So becoming immersed in design thinking, both through coursework in the Stanford LEAD program and through the amazing book Designing Your Life by Bill Burnett and Dave Evans, I was able to connect this process of design thinking to the reality that I could, in fact, choose how to design each moment. So here's the coolest part. You can do this too. When you feel stressed, overwhelmed, or anxious in any situation, just remember these 3 simple steps. Stop, breathe, and say to yourself, I can design this moment. Well, you can't control situations or people. You can choose your responses and your actions in any given situation. Let's look at a couple examples. So first, let's say your significant other calls you and says, honey, I'm so sorry, there's been a last-minute change of plans and I can't make tonight's date. Rather than catastrophizing and assuming they must not really care, they probably never even loved you, and I bet they're seeing someone else, and I'll never find anyone who really loves me, stop, breathe, and design. So what are your possible design choices in this moment? Well, for one, you could simply choose to negotiate a new time for your date together. Or you could choose to express your genuine disappointment in a way that conveys your love without being unkind. Or you could even choose to end the relationship if this is just the latest in a long pattern of neglect. The key is, no matter how hurtful or offensive the other person's actions may seem to be, remember that you have the power to choose to design the moment. So how might this pattern look in a case where your actions led directly to the stressful situation? Let's say you oversleep, arrive at work late, and your boss says you're fired. Rather than yelling at your boss, which could further damage your reputation, and rather than catastrophizing and thinking your whole life is ruined, stop, breathe, and design. Are angry words and venting really your only options in this moment? Certainly not. You could choose, for example, to humbly apologize and ask your boss to forgive you. You could choose to offer to go out and buy a new, louder alarm clock right after work today to make sure you don't oversleep again. Or you could even offer to work for a week with no pay to prove how important this job is to you and how dedicated you are to getting it right. Even if nothing works out with your boss, you can still choose to design the moment. For example, you could phone a friend or a group of friends for emotional support. You could choose to take a walk in a peaceful place, to exercise, meditate, or pray. Or you could even choose to reach out to your local career center and your network of friends and professional contacts to get advice on learning new skills and finding a new job. And before you get that new job, you really might want to invest in that louder alarm clock, just saying. Now, an important disclaimer. While remembering your ability to design each moment can help reduce stress and alleviate anxiety in situations both large and small, there may be times where you need a little more. Just like some physical injuries require the attention of a trained medical professional, there may be cases where your anxiety warrants the attention of a trained mental health professional. Mental health treatment has been extremely valuable for me and millions of others across the globe. If the prospect of reaching out for professional help seems overwhelming, find a friend a trusted advisor, an advocate, someone who can go with you to help you get that help. If you crashed your bicycle and broke both your legs, no one would expect you to get up and walk yourself to the nearest emergency room. In a similar way, if you're in intense emotional pain, no one expects you to have to get that help on your own. Most importantly, no matter how dark the world around you may seem, always choose to remember and believe in the truth that there will always be brighter days ahead. Never vote against the preciousness of life by choosing to end it. The decision to end your pain or unburden those around you will, in reality, transfer a much, much heavier burden of pain onto them as the weight of losing you tears a hole through the remainder of their lives. In any situation, instead of giving up, stop, breathe, and design. Look for friends and professionals who can help you take the steps you need to find peace in your heart again. Step forward outside of your fear as far as you can and ask for as much help as you need during this process of designing moments and designing your life. Will you be perfect at any point in this process? Certainly not. You are human. So when you forget to stop, breathe, and design, or when you make a mistake or fail in any degree, forgive yourself. Go back and examine what went well, what didn't, and how you could possibly improve in a similar situation in the future. Talk it out with a friend or a trusted advisor and keep moving forward. Once you see the light and peace and hope and strength and power that come into your life through designing moments, you will find the power to help lead others out of darkness and into the refreshing light of peace. As Marianne Williamson famously said, our greatest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our greatest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, and fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? Your playing small does not serve the world. There's nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people will not feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do, and as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give others permission to do likewise. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. I stand here today not as one who's been perfectly liberated from all my anxieties and fears, but as one who is wholeheartedly invested in that process of liberation. Having seen the great changes that have come into my own life, I witness that each one of us, every one of us, including you, truly have the power to elevate our emotions, shape our destinies, and lift the lives of others through remembering our power to design each moment. So, choose today to try. The next time you feel scared, overwhelmed, or anxious, say it with me: stop, breathe, and design. Thank you.